Annie, welcome to A House for Arts. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
So tell me a bit about the Crandall Theater. What is its history and why is it important to Chatham?
Oh, it's got a long history. First off, the Crandall was built in 1926, so it's 95 years old. It was built by a native Chathamite, Walter S. Crandall, and he was an entrepreneur and a banker, and he just wanted to give something to his community. So he built this huge 534-seat theater, originally to be a vaudeville theater, because movies really hadn't begun fully yet in the early 20s. And it's the largest, oldest single-screen theater in Columbia County, and that's where Chatham is. It's a small village in Columbia County.
And tell me a bit, too, about how you became executive director of the Crandall Theater.
It's a great story because I was a volunteer. I always love to tell people that when I first moved from New York City up here in 1999, I was thrilled to find the Crandall because I do like films, and I even had some background in film production. And I volunteered for the film festival to help out with the media coverage. And then years later, I became a member, obviously, and I saw that they were looking for their first part-time executive director, and that's how it happened.
So were you a filmmaker yourself at any point? How did you get so interested in film?
Well, you know, as an executive director, it's not so much the creative part as it is the administrative part. As it happened, I did make a film at the American Film Institute when I was younger. I was interested in film production, so I did have some background in it, but really my strengths were in having run small businesses and also nonprofit organizations. And for the Crandall Theater, which is a 501c3 organization, having an administrator with that background was actually more helpful.
What kinds of films has the Crandall Theater been filming over the past several years?
Well, we have two kinds of programming. We have our everyday programming every week. We show one or two new films. They tend to be what we call first and second run. First run being the new releases, second run a little behind the other theaters maybe, but for our crowd, they'd rather wait and see it at the Crandall because it's their neighborhood community theater. It's right on Main Street, and it feels like you're going to your community living room. We also do Film Columbia once a year, which is has become a 10-day film festival with over 50 films from all over the world, animation, shorts, documentaries, features, foreign language, and is a very welcome event in town. We have about 8,500 people attending each year.
So it sounds like people are also coming in from out of town, outside of Chatham.
Yes, exactly. Okay. It does attract people from out of town. We are fortunate enough to get films that have not premiered yet in the United States. Wow. And that's because we have a wonderful board of director, Peter Biskin, who has been curating the films along with Larry Kardish, who's former curator of MoMA film. So, here we are in this little small town, but we've got this great board of people that have connections and have helped make this theater and Film Columbia what it is today.
It sounds like you have a really great collaborative team. Are there any particular films that have been screened at Crandall or during this Columbia Festival that have been particularly popular? And I'm also curious to know, because I'm wondering, how do these films also promote the theater's mission on a wider level?
Oh, well, that's a more complex conversation, but I'll start there because it does give context. I have to go back and tell the story that the Crandall was privately owned for many, many years, and then the owner died. And there had been a small group of film lovers in Columbia County and Chatham area who had been really looking to show more independent films at the theater and had rented the theater, I think, once a month. Well, when the idea that the Crandall might be sold to an outsider and maybe even torn down, this group came together and raised money from the community, from the Ellsworth Kelly Foundation, from two philanthropists in the town, but really from the local community. Nobody wanted to see the Crandall on Main Street go dark. So we were able to purchase it, the Chatham Film Club, and then they became a 501c3, which was in 2009. Mm-hmm. So for the last 10 years, it's been a nonprofit theater, but prior to that, it was commercial. Now, the mission is to really develop people's appreciation for film and filmmaking as an art. And, you know, as with all the arts, we believe that that contributes to a very rich social and cultural life for families, for individuals, and for the whole community. And the Crandall's very much about programming for our community, because being so small and local, you can do that. That's one of the charms about it. So with the film festival, however, we go way out there. We bring the world to Chatham. I mean, the films come from every part of the globe.
Yeah, what are some examples?
Oh, you know, they're films that you might not have seen. We also show a lot of films that you have seen. We've done, you know, Silver Linings Playbook was one of the favorites. I remember that was, and again, people saw it before it was ever released, so it was a fresh experience that hadn't heard anything about it, and you really get a visceral reaction to film when that's the case. I know that's not a recent one, but now, of course, I can't think of the others, but they've been films with, you know, famous directors. Oh, well, James Schamus as a producer and Ang Lee as a director. We've shown almost all of their premieres. Brokeback
Mountain?
Brokeback Mountain,
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last year we honored James Schamus, and we showed a new film that he had produced. So we get from both the celebrated films, the films that have been at the festivals and won awards but haven't been released yet, to these small films like Sweet Bean, which was a Japanese film about a sweet bean maker who had a cart. And it has some magical surrealism in it with her and the small children that came every day. And it was just a poem of a film, is the way I like to think of it. And you wouldn't get a chance to see it any other place. So that's really what the film festival specializes in, but the everyday films, we try and mix it up, but mainly I would say it's quality films, independent and major ones, not so much blockbusters anymore, because people can go to the mall and see it on a small screen. Whereas with the Crandall, it's one of the few places where you can see a film on a 26 by 14-foot screen still, which is quite an experience.
Well, it sounds, Annie, like one of the special things the Crandall does compared to other theaters is it brings movies to people before they keep hearing a lot of discourse and talking about it, so that they can appreciate it for its artistic qualities first before being kind of influenced by hype or by critics and things like that. So that sounds like a really valuable kind of creative process.
Yes, no, it truly is. And our community really appreciates that too.
Right.
They gather together after the shows and stand under the marquee and talk, you know, for like a half an hour. And it's amazing to see how the film can catalyze that kind of interaction from people who may not even know each other.
Right. You know, it sounds to me, you know, you were telling me that the theater became a nonprofit in 2010. I know, too, that in the 20s it also acquired sound equipment so that they could screen talkies, so-called talkies at the time. It seems like over the course of the Crandall's really long history, it's been a barometer for large cultural and economic changes that have taken place not just in Chatham, but in the U.S. more widely. And I'm kind of wondering, how has the pandemic impacted the movie business and the theater in particular? What can we tell about our current moment by looking at the Crandall Theater?
Well, it definitely has impacted us. We closed the day, I think, before the governor asked people to close, because we saw the signs coming and we didn't want to risk anything. And we've remained closed all this time. Obviously, theaters are still not allowed to be open. We shifted to virtual cinema, as many other small independent theaters have done. And there are some new films coming out around the world. Not a lot of big films, but we've been showing films that we showed once at Film Festival that people may not have seen, like RGB. We're just showing her again this week. And
a very important time to show that, right?
Yes, exactly. And we're able to be timely because with virtual cinema, you don't have to wait for the film to be shipped to you, for the drive to be shipped. You can just, you know, stream it right away. Right. So it has given us a chance to be more timely with the community. We also showed Good Trouble, with John Lewis as soon as that he passed away, like the very next week, and that drew a big crowd virtually. So we've been doing that, and we've also been hosting community events where we can find a film to spark discussion about a subject that's of interest to our community, and then Zoom it and have live discussion afterwards, Q&A with a panel. We recently did Harvesting Change about food in our pandemic times, and it was about farms and farming and the food supply system, and had a very diverse panel, and we had over 100 people participating in that, which was quite good, given that there's so much competition for people's attention on the screen these days, the small screen anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Annie, these all sound like such amazing programs, and I can't wait to just get involved and maybe sit in on one of these discussions. Is there any information that people can find maybe online about the Crandall's different programs and events?
Absolutely, crandalltheatre.org, Theatre, the old-fashioned kind, .org. And there you'll see, about our programs, and you can join our email list, and we send weekly emails out about what what's coming up ahead.
That sounds fantastic. Annie, thank you so much on being on House for Arts. It was a real pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.